Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ITLS Academy. Today, we are going to discuss about the introduction of the food preservation. Okay, as the name suggested, preservation means that the preserve the food, preserve the food, which means that we increase the shelf life of the food product. Now, how we increase this shelf life? Shelf life will be increases when the micro or the growth of the microorganisms are inhibited. Growth of the microorganisms are inhibited. Okay, when the growth of this microorganisms inhibited, then the shelf life of the food product increases and also maintain the quality of the food product. Maintain the quality of the food product. That is known as a food product, food preservation. Okay, now we are food preservation in simply means that suppose that for example milk. Now the shelf life of the milk is what? It is around 2 to 3 days, and even at a refrigerated condition. Refrigerated condition. Okay. Now if we keep this milk at room temperature, so approx 2 hours, this milk is spoiled. Now we apply a preservation technique, that is a refrigerated condition. We give that refrigerated condition so that the shelf life of the milk increases. That's why it also come under the category of the food preservation. Now let's start the lecture. Introduction. Simply, food preservations are what? They involve a variety of the techniques or a action so that we maintain the quality of the food product. Okay, and we maintain the food quality according to our desired property or nature for as long as possible. Okay, now simply the main aim of that food preservation is what? We have to keep our food as a natural, as long as possible. As long as possible. See, simply means that if we have to avoid the change of the quality of that food product or change the property of the food product, then it also come under the category of the food product, food preservation. Now in most of the countries, innovation, sustainability and safety become the main foci of modern industry and economy. Now food safety means that the food should be reaches to the consumer. Food should be reaches to the consumer so that the food should be safe. Food should be safe means that when the consumer consume that food product, then it does not cause any illness into the consumer. That is known as a food safety, and this is a main aim of the different countries, that they should apply the innovative technique and the sustainability so that the food reaches to the consumer should be safe. The industry can compromise with some qualities like color to some extent, but not with the safety. Okay, now food industry compromise themselves, uh, like um, um, compromise with that qualities, with some qualities of the food product, like suppose that the color of the food product. Okay, if the color of the food product changes and it cannot be retained with the normal food color, it can be acceptable, but food industry cannot be compromised with that safety of the food product. Okay, safety means that the food should be free from any type of the hazard. Food should be safe from any type of hazard. It is very important. Okay, so this is a introduction part. Now come to the next slide. Suppose that if we talk about the preservation and the processing of the food product. Okay, now these processing and the preservation of the food product are two different things. Okay, processing means that we have to convert the raw material into the food product, into the food product, that is known as the processing of the food product. Now preservation means that we have to preserve these food product, means that we have to maintain the quality of the food product, that is known as a preservation. We have to increase the shelf life, and when we increase the shelf life of the food product, we the main aim is what? We have to maintain its quality. Okay, suppose that the shelf life is increases, but its quality should not be maintained. Okay, it causes the uh, like uh, it causes the disease into the human being, then it is not come under the category of the food preservation. Okay, if we maintain the food preservation, then at the same time we have to maintain its quality. So there are different technique of the food preservation. Okay, we cannot say that the food processing and the food preservation are very simple. Okay, now it is simple when it was it was it was completed in the past. Okay, if we talk about the past time, like at ancient time, when the both the process, that is your preservation process and the this processing process, both are the simple, but now these technique become more complex because there are number of preservation techniques are developed. Okay, which are used to fulfill the demand of the economic preservation and consumer satisfaction. Okay, so when we have to maintain the food quality, at the same time we have to satisfy the consumer, and at which property is used for this satisfaction of the customer is a nutritional property, like the nutritional value of the food product should not be changes. Okay, suppose that if we preserve some food product, like suppose that if we preserve the mango, now this mango is what? It is a seasoning fruit. Now we have to preserve these mango. Now we have to very clear in our mind that we have to maintain its nutritive value. It is very important. If the nutritive value is degraded, then there is no need for the preservation of that particular food product. We also maintain the sensory aspect, convenience, safety, absence of chemical preservative, which is very important. Okay, if we use a chemical preservative which is very harmful, now these all the chemical preservative are not good for the human health, so we have to avoid it. And also price and environmental safety. Understanding the effect of each preservation method on food has therefore become a critical in all the aspects. Food preservation is simply a technique or a method which is used to maintain the quality of the food product and also give a desired properties and characteristic to the food product. And these desired properties or the characteristic of the food product should be a natural as long as possible. Then in that case it is known as a food preservation. Now there are lots of technique which included in a food preservation method. Like suppose that it is thermal or non-thermal. Okay, thermal means that we use a heat for the preservation, and in non-thermal processing we does not use the heat, does not use the heat for the preservation. Both type of the techniques are used for the preservation of the food, and these techniques minimize the microbial spoilage, and when the microbial spoilage are minimized, ultimately the shelf life of the food product increases. That is known as a food preservation. Either it come under the category of the thermal processing, or either it come under the category of the non-thermal processing. Now see, food preservation is an action or a method of maintaining foods at desired level of the properties, characteristic or nature for as long as possible. It is use of a specific thermal and non-thermal processing technique to minimize the microbial spoilage and extending the shelf life of the food product. Preservation method are start with the complete analysis, which is very important. Okay, when we have to apply a preservation technique in a particular food product, then we have to start it with the complete analysis, and we have to understand the whole food chain. Whole food chain means that this raw product to consumer reach. Okay, so we have to understand all these food chains like growing, harvesting, processing, packaging, and distribution. Thus, an integrated approach need to be applied. It lie at the heart of the food science and technology, and it is the main purpose of the food processing. Okay, food preservation is what? It is a main purpose of the food processing. Suppose that we process the food product, and if we are not able to preserve that food product, then it is not useful for us. Okay, so if we do a food processing, then it is very important that we have to preserve that food product till it reaches to the consumer. Now see that graph, or you can say that's figure, which shows that the various stages of the food product, like from raw material till it reaches to the consumer for a consumption, it goes under the various type of the processing. First of all, food are harvested, then it is a store. Now it is a store either in a condition of the fresh food or food ingredients, then processing, packaging, storage, distribution, sale, transport, then again storage, then consumption, consumer. Consumer, again, some consumers sell it. Okay, now from storage, this food process are directly go to the sale. So these are the various stages of the food production, and at all stages we have to preserve our food product. Either it is the raw material, or either it is the food, ready to eat food, or the products, anything, we have to preserve it. Okay, now the next is food preservation. So it is very important when we preserve our food product, so it should be preserved at that identified properties and characteristic. Okay, it cannot be lose their identity. The first aim of the food preservation is what? We have to maintain its identity, like we have to maintain its original form. First, it is important to identify the properties or the characteristic that need to be preserved. Okay, now what we have to do? We have to identify the particular characteristic of the food product that we have to maintain. Why it is important? Because this one properties is important for one product, okay, but detrimental for others. Suppose that collapse and pore formation occur during the drying of the food product. So this can be desirable or undesirable, which is totally depend upon the desired quality of the dry product. Okay, which means that it totally depend upon the end product. So according to the one properties of the food product which is required for the maintenance, for which is required for the preservation, we have to do that food preservation technique, or we have to apply the food preservation technique. For example, crust formation. This crust formation is desirable for long bowl life in case of breakfast, like your cereal ingredients and quick rehydration process. Another example, that the consumer expect that apple juice to be clear, whereas orange juice should be cloudy. Okay, when we preserve the apple juice. Okay, now this apple juice are preserved according to the need of the consumer, because consumer think that the apple, when when they consume that apple juice, this should be clear. And on the other hand, similarly, the orange juice should be cloudy. So it's totally depend upon the need of the consumer. Why the preservation is important? So there are different of the reasons due to which the preservation techniques are very important, and we have to discuss it. Like, first is it overcome inappropriate planning in agriculture, produce value added product, preserve the quality and nutritive value of the food product, prevent the spoilage and eliminate waste, and provide a variation in a diet. Like, so first thing is that the main reason of that preservation of the food product is that it overcome in inappropriate planning in agriculture. Okay, when there is an inappropriate planning in agriculture, then this food preservation come as a benefit for them, because already the food product are preserved. Now if there is some thing wrong occur in agriculture during that particular year, then they should use the preserved food product for that thing. Then next is it added a value to the particular food product, and it also preserve the quality and the nutritive value of the food product, and it prevent the spoilage and eliminate the waste, and provide a variation in diet. In food preservation, the important points which need to be considered, that the desired level of the quality, and preservation length, and group for whom the product are preserved. How long to preserve? After storage for certain period, one or more quality contribute of food may reaches to the undesirable state. Okay, suppose that when we store a food product for a certain period of the time, at that time maybe one or more than one quality of that for particular food product are come under the category of the undesirable state, means that the expectant of that particular food product are decreases. So at that time we consider that the food are not suitable for the consumption, and it said that the shelf life of the food product are ended here. Okay, when that undesirable state are reaches. After storage for certain period, one or more quality attribute of the food may reaches to the undesirable state. At that time, the food is considered unsuitable for the consumption and is said to have reached the end of its shelf life. This level is defined by the manufacturer. Okay, now this undesirable state are defined by whom? The manufacturer who manufactured that particular food product. And this level is defined according to that different criteria, which included the sellable food product. Like your best before that is set a shorter than the shelf life with a good margin. So there are several studies which say that the shelf life of the food product is very important, because it measures the rate of changes of given quality of the attribute. The product quality can be defined by using a many factors like your appearance, yield, eating and characteristic, and microbial characteristic. But ultimately, the final use must provide a pleasurable experience for the consumer. Now the next is your, now the total length which is required for the preservation of the food are depend upon the purpose of the preservation. Like in many cases, we have to store that food product at very longer period of time. Okay, in that time, shelf life is not needed. Okay, when the shelf life is not needed, we have to store that food product at prolong, which simplify the both the transport and marketing of the food stuff. Like meal which is prepared for the lunch need a shelf life of only 1 or even a half day. Okay, in suppose that when we have to preserve, when we prepare that meal for lunch or either for breakfast or either for the dinner, in that case we have to maintain the shelf life only 1 or even half of the day. In that case, there is no point in ensuring the preservation of the product for week or month. In other cases, shelf life of the food product are very long, like is 3 to 5 years. For example, food for space traveler and food storage during the war. So these factors affecting the quality of the food product, safety, choice, that will be discussed in a later slide. If there are different factors which affect that quality of that food product, safety of the food products. So let's discuss that. Like quality of the food product, safety and choices. Now, choice are depend upon the advertisement, public knowledge, social factors, economic factors, consumer age, media report, past experience, attitude, and expectation. And even expectation have emotional factors. Choice also depend upon the sensory evolution, nutritive value, functional properties, and convenience. Like these are what? These are the food properties. Now, qualities are depend upon the unsafe level of the microflora, pathogen, microbial toxins means that the toxin which are produced by the microorganisms, parasite, toxic chemicals, radioactive hazards. Now, for whom to preserve? Okay, like it is very important. We have to know that for whom we have to preserve the food product. Like nutritional requirement and food restriction apply different to different population. Like food poisons are fatal, especially in case of the infant, pregnant women, and elderly because their immune system are very weak. Those with the depressed immune system. Okay, and the legal aspect of the food preservation are different in case of the food produced for human and for animal consumption. Okay, for both, like when the food are product for the human consumption and when the food preserved for the animal consumption, these two are very different in their case. Thus, it is very necessary to consider the group for whom the food products are being manufactured. Cause of the deterioration. So there are several causes for the deterioration of the food product, like mechanical, physical, chemical, enzyme, and microbial, which ultimately leads the food deterioration and spoilage. And when the food are deteriorate and spoil, it cannot be safe for the human consumption. Now, these damage of the food product can be start at the initial point. Like suppose that when the food are harvested or processing or distribution, they are the mishandling, like okay, due to which a ultimate reduction of the shelf life of the food product occur. Now deterioration of the food product can be listed as follow, like processing of the fruit vegetable during the harvesting and post harvest handling, which leads to the development of the rot. Tuberous and leafy vegetable lost their water when kept in an atmosphere with low humidity, and subsequently wet dry food kept in high humidity may pick up the moisture and become a soggy. So there are four sources of the food spoilage occur due to the microbial contamination, and these sources are soil, water, air, and animals. In animals, insects, rodents, and humans are included. Major quality loss and mechanisms. So the first column included the microbial, microbiological, and the second column is enzymatic reaction. Third column is chemical, then physical, then mechanical. Okay. Now microorganisms grow. If the microorganisms growth occur, then browning of the browning occur, and chemical changes, that is your color loss, and physical changes is it is collapse, and mechanical changes is bruising due to the vibration. Then off flavor, color changes, flavor loss, control release, cracking. Toxin production, if the toxin production occur, then off flavor occur, and non-enzymatic browning occur, nutritive loss, oxidation, reduction, rancidity, and crystallization, flavor encapsulation, phase changes, recrystallization, shrinkage, transport of the component, and damage occur due to the pressure. Now, first cause of the deterioration is your mechanical damage. For example, your bruises and wounds. It occurred due to the conducive to spoilage, and it is frequently cause further chemical and microbial deterioration. When the mechanical damage occur, then it leads to the chemical and microbial deterioration. Now the next is your microbial growth. Microbial growth are occurred due to the growth of the microorganism in a food product, and due to that growth the food are spoiled. And how we said that the food are spoiled? Because there is a development of the undesirable changes or undesirable characteristic occur, and in that case food become unsafe for the consumption. Now microbial growth in food result in food spoilage. When the microbial growth occur, then food spoilage occur within the development of the undesirable sensory characteristic, and in certain cases the food may become unsafe for the consumption. Now there are several chemical changes are also occurred during the processing and storage of the food products, and these changes are unacceptable because it causes the food deterioration into the food product, and due to that deterioration the sensory and the nutritive value of the food product reduced. Okay, now see what is written here. Several chemical changes occur during the processing and storage of the food. These changes may cause food to deteriorate by reducing its sensory and nutritional quality. Now, there are food are also spoiled by the many enzymatic reaction. Like for example, when we cut the fruits, okay, now, for example, when we cut the apple, now it changes its color into the brown, even it kept at a room temperature. Now, this reaction are occurred due to the phenolase which are present into the cell. They releases uh, the phenolase are released during the presence of the oxygen, and due to which the fruits are changed its color and converted its color into the brown color. Food preservation method. Now there are different food preservation method. So we discuss basic of that because we are only discuss the introduction of the food preservation. Now these method of the food preservation are based upon the mode of the action and the major food preservation technique. Now, these are the characterized by the inhibition of the microbial growth. Okay, when we apply the food preservation method, then the microbial growth are inhibited and the chemical deterioration are slowed down, and it inactivate the bacterial growth, yeast growth, or enzymes reaction, and avoid the recontamination occur before and after the processing. So there are number of the techniques and method which is used for the preservation technique, and this preservation of the food product are start at the harvesting of the from the harvesting of the food and separated from the medium of the immediate growth like plant, soil or water, or meat from the animal after the slaughter, or milk from the normal secretion of the mammalian glands. So these are the method of the food preservation. There are different type of the food preservation method. It can be classified according to the inhibition, inactivation, and avoid the recontamination. Now if we talk about the inhibition, now in that case what we have to do, we decrease the temperature during the storage, like in case of the freezing and refrigeration, reduction of the water activity like your dry food product, decrease of the oxygen, it come under the category of the modern packaging technique, increase of the carbon dioxide, acidification, fermentation, addition of the preservative. Preservatives are what? They are the chemical substances or some natural substances which are added into the food product to increase its shelf life. Adding of the antioxidant, control pH, freezing, drying, concentration, surface coating, structure modification, chemical modification, gas removal, changes in phase transition, and hurdle technology. Hurdle technology means that we use all these technology. Now inactivation means that we inactivate the microorganism, and due to that inactivation we increase the shelf life of the food product, like your sterilization, pasteurization, irradiation, electrifying, pressure treatment, blanching, cooking, frying, extrusion, light, sound, and magnetic field. Next is your avoid of the recontamination. So this recontamination are simply occur when the food are produced. Okay. Now, for example, your packaging, hygienic processing, hygienic storage, aseptic processing, HACCP, GMP, ISO 900, total quality management and risk analysis and management. Now, the next is your the food preservation method are totally depend upon the origin of the food product, means that the from which the food product are origin. Now if the food are origin from the plant source, then there are different method of the food preservation are apply, and if the food are origin from a animal source, then there are different food preservation methods are applied. So it depend upon the origin of the food method. Post-harvest handling of a food of plant origin include efficient control of the environmental atmosphere like your humidity, gas, composition and temperature, and implanting and advocate packaging, storage and transport system. Now, physical treatment usually used like your curing, pre-cooling, temperature treatment, cleaning and vaccine, whereas chemical treatment like your disinfection, fumigation and dipping. Post-harvest quality of the meat are affected by the slaughter condition or stress before the death of the animal. Now, if we talk about the fish, then there are different method of the preservation technique are used like your chilling, electrical stimulation and decontamination methods. For example, hot water rinsing with or without the chlorination. With or without the chlorination means that either with the presence of the chlorine or either with the absence of the chlorine. Decontamination with the phosphate, hydrogen peroxide, chlorine, chlorine dioxide, ozone, and the surface treatment by the organic acids. Pre-treatment like your blanching, sulfating, and other physical and chemical pre-treatment are used before applying a major preservation technique. Next is your Main purpose of the pre-treatment is that we have to ultimately improve the quality of the food product and process efficiency. Food preservation by inhibition. Okay, so it totally depend upon the method which come under the category of the inhibition. It depend upon that the control of the environment, like extensive properties, for example your temperature control and relative humidity. It also depend upon the intrinsic properties like built into a particular food product, like your control by the adjustment of the water activity or either by the pH. Okay, now we all know that the microbial growth which occur into the food product when these food products are stored at the danger zone. Now danger zone means that the temperature range between the 5 degree to 63 degrees Celsius. Okay, now we have to avoid to store the food product at the temperature range between the 5 to 63 degrees Celsius. So either we kept the food product below the 63, sorry, uh, below the 5 degrees Celsius or above the 5 degree, sorry, above the 63 degrees Celsius. Below the 5 degrees Celsius or above the 63 degrees Celsius. Food preservation by use of the chemical additives. Now when we use a chemical, then it is called a additive. So there are various chemical and additives are used for the preservation of the food product so that it control the pH of the food product or control the antimicrobes, sorry, act as the antimicrobes and antioxidant, and also provide a functional to the food product as well as preservative action. Now, some additives are internally synthetic, like your phenolic, antioxidant, and tertiary butyl hydroquinone, and others are extracted from the natural sources like vitamin E. Irrespective of the origin, food additive must be accomplish some desired function in a food product to which they are added, and they must be safe to consumer under the intent condition of the use. When a chemical is used in a preservation, then the main question is that are the that particular chemicals are safe or not, and if it is safe, then at which level of that chemicals are safe and what type of the risk are associated with the use of that particular chemical, and also the benefit of that chemical when we use of that chemical into the food product. So these are the main question when is arises when we uses a chemical as a preservation in a preservation methods. So types and properties of the chemical antimicrobial substances used in food processing industries. Antimicrobial compounds, the first column is for antimicrobial compound, then effective against, and then some food applications. So the first is your acetic acid, salt, sodium acetate. So it is effective in case of the bacteria and mold, and it can be used in bread, as vinegar in pickle product and mayonnaise. Then benzoic acid salt, that is your sodium benzoate. It is affected against the mold and yeast, and the food product which is used for these antimicrobial compound are ketchup, jam, syrup, orange juice, product syrup. Sodium and calcium propionate, bacteria and mold, bread, cake, cheese, food. Potassium sorbate, it is effective against the bacteria and mold, and it should be applied in bread. Salt, that is your sodium chloride, it is affected against the bacteria, yeast and mold, and food product like your baked product, canned food and meats. Sodium nitrate, it is affected against the clostridium and food product like your cured meat products. Sodium benzoate, So it is affected against the mold and yeast and the food product like your condiments and fruit juices. Sugar and sucrose, so it is affected against the bacteria, yeast and mold. And the food product that we use is a baked products, fruit preserve and meat. Sulfide, sulfur dioxide against bacteria, yeast and mold. Dry fruit, lemon juice, molasses and wines are the food products. Food preservation by control of the water. So these activity of the water as medium is clearly correlated with the deterioration of the food product. We all know that when the moisture content of the food product are more, then the chances of the microbial spoilage are also high, because these microorganisms required water for their growth. So that's why if the water activity is high, then it supported the growth of the microorganism, and when the growth of the microorganism occur, then the food are spoiled. The minimum water activity is limit below which a microorganisms or group of microorganisms can no longer reproduce. For most food, this is the water activity range 0.6 to 0.7. In that case, the food are safe. Food preservation by the control of the water, like pathogenic bacteria can be grow up below water activity of 0.85 to 0.86, and yeast and mold can be grow at reduced water activity, that is your 0.80. But there is no growth of the microorganisms are occur when the water activity are below than 0.62. So the critical limit of water activity may also be shifted to higher or lower level by other factors like your pH and salt, antimicrobial agent, heat treatment, and temperature to some extent. So either we remove the water, at that case the water activity reduces, or even when we add the solute or change of the solute water interaction also reduces the water activity of the food product. When the water activity are reduces, food spoilage also reduces, and food when the food are not spoiled, then simply it means that food are safe for the consumption. Food preservation by the control atmosphere packaging. Okay, so here we just only discuss about the basic, like MAP means modified atmospheric pressure, modified atmospheric packaging. Modified atmospheric packaging. In that case, what we have to do when we pack the food product, so we modify the atmospheric condition inside the packaging food. Like suppose that if some gases are suitable for the growth of the microorganism, then we reduce that gas amount into the packaging material and added the gases which are not suitable for the food growth, sorry, microbial growth. So that's why it preserves the food product. Now MAP is a preservation technique that may further minimize the physiological and microbial decay of the perishable produce by keeping them in an atmosphere that is different from the normal composition of the air. Now in MAP, the gas composition within the packaging, it is not monitored or adjusted. In CAP, the altered gas composition inside the packaging material is monitored and maintained at a present level of the means and scrubber and the inlet of the gases. And these active packaging are different from the MAP and CAP packaging because it provide a solution, and these solutions are used in a preservation of the food product. Okay, now how we provide that solution? Either we add some absorbent or release a specific compound in a gas phase, like these compound absorb the carbon dioxide, oxygen and water vapor, ethylene and volatile, that influence the taste and aroma of the food product. Food preservation inactivation, so we use a heat. This heat inactivate the microorganisms. Okay, when the microorganisms are inactivated, the shelf life is increases. Thermal inactivation is still the most widely used process of the food preservation. Now, in case of the inactivation of the food product, what we do, we give a heat. Now, these thermal inactivation means that the use of the heat for the deterioration of the microorganisms are still the most widely used type of the food preservation method. So there are advantages of the using of the heat for the food preservation technique, like heat are safe and chemical free. We all know that when we use a heat, so it is totally safe and it is chemical free. It also provide a tender cooked flavor and taste, and major of the spoilage microorganisms are heat liable. Okay, so there are the majority of the spoilage microorganism, they are what, they are a heat liable. Thermally processed food, when packed in a sterile condition, have a very longer shelf life. The main advantages of using a heat, like overcooking may, sorry, the main disadvantage of using a heat. Sometimes overcooking leads to the textual disintegration and undesirable cooked flavor. And nutritional deterioration are also occur due to the higher temperature used during the processing. Heat treatment include pasteurization, sterilization, cooking, extrusion, and frying. Use of high pressure and ultrasounds rays. Okay, now high pressure, these high pressure are come under the category of the non-thermal preservation. Means that in that category we don't use a heat. Now, these high pressure also inactivate the vegetative microorganisms by isostatic pressure pasteurization. In that case, the atmospheric pressure are at the range of 1000 to 9000. So, these are the basic of the hydrostatic pressure, according to which any reaction, conformation changes or phase transition that is accompanied by decrease in volume will be favored at high pressure, while the reaction involve an increase in volume will be inhibited. We also use our ultrasound rays, and these ultrasound rays have a frequency range that at the range between the 12 kilohertz. So the application of the ultrasound rays in food product are characterized as food material or process and direct use in food preservation or processing. Electricity are also used for the preservation of the food product. Radiation are also used. So what we have to do in electricity, we use a electrical energy. These electrical energy preserve the food product, like your ohmic heating, microwave heating, low electrical field stimulation, high voltage arc discharge, and high intensity pulse electric field. Radiation, in radiation we use a ionization radiation for the preservation of the food product. Food preservation by food safety concept, like hazard analysis, critical control point. It is what, it is a systematic identification of the hazard and evaluating that hazard, control the food safety of the hazard. Hazard are either biological, chemical, or physical agent which cause illness into the human being if it is not be controlled. These hazard prevent the food safety hazard these hazard prevent the food safety hazard rather than react to the food safety hazard. So HACCP have 7 principles, like hazard analysis, identify the critical control point, then we have to set a critical limit, then monitor the critical control point, establish the corrective action, then verification, and at last, 7th principle is your documentation, which is not written here. It is documentation. We have to prepare a document for each things. GMP is good manufacturing processes in which we have to apply a like good manufacturing practices so that the food product should be safe from raw material till it reaches to the food product. So it includes the ground equipments, pest control, receiving and storage, process control, product recall, and personal training. Total quality management is a supervision concept by R. W. Edward Deming. So the main aim to decrease the error which is produced during the mechanized or service process, amplify the customer satisfaction, modernization of the equipment, streamline supply chain management, and highest rank of the training for the workers. So one of the most important aim of the TQM is what? It is to limit the error to 1 per 1 million unit produced. SOP is your standard operating procedure in which we prepare our written practices so that the food should be safe. Harder technology and combined preservation technique. In this method, we use a different technique of the food preservation so that we ensure that the pathogenic microorganisms can be eliminated from the food product or can be controlled into the food product. This means that the food product will be safe for the consumption and their shelf life will be extended. Now, harder technology are work by combining the more than one approach. For example, hurdle in a food system are high temperature during processing, low temperature during the storage, and increasing the acidity, lowering the water activity or redox potential, or the presence of the preservative. When all these techniques are used together, then it come under the category of the harder technology for the preservation of the food product. ISO 900 and ISO 22000. ISO 900 are related to the quality management system and ISO 22000 are related to the food safety. Okay, which means that the presence of the foodborne hazard in food product at that point of the consumption. Now, this ISO 22000 are what? These are the international standard which ensure that the food are safe, means that food safety management system, and it involve the following elements like your interactive communication system management, prerequisite program, and HACCP principle. So these are all about the introduction of the food preservation. I hope you will understand. But if you have any query, you can freely to ask me in a comment box, or for a further detail, you can follow the ITLS Academy on different platform. That is your Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, WhatsApp, and LinkedIn. And subscribe our channel ITLS Academy on YouTube and get our app from a Google Play. You can also ask your query to the helpline number that are already mentioned in our slide, that is 7080833450, and visit our website, that is www.itlsacademy.com. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe our channel.